Don't miss the biggest show of the summer, Kings of the West, starring Bone Thugs and Harmony, E40, Too Short, Mac 10, The Dog Pound, DJ Quick, Sugar Free, and Khadijah, live July 11th at Wells Fargo Arena. Don't miss Kings of the West with Bone Thugs and Harmony, E40, Too Short, DJ Quick, Mac 10, The Dog Pound, Sugar Free, and Khadijah. Get tickets now at HighVTix.com.
Spring has sprung in the great state of Iowa, and if you've been thinking about getting outdoors with your family during the best time of year, we want to help you here at Plaza RV. We are a locally owned RV dealer in Bondurant who cares about our customers before, during, and most importantly, after your purchase. Give us a chance. We will treat you like family. Buy local. Buy from Plaza RV.
Scott Dochterman, Chad Leistikow, together on one pod, talking odds and all things Big Ten. Powered by GameDay Men's Health, with locations in Ankeny, West Des Moines, and North Liberty. From the Channel Seed Studios, this is Legends and Listeners, exclusively on Iowa Everywhere.
Hey, Hawkeye fans, Big Ten fans, and Iowans everywhere. Welcome into episode 94 of Legends and Listeners here on Iowa Everywhere. Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register with you, along with Scott Dochterman of The Athletic. Love that Iowa Everywhere pairs us together each week. This week, we're coming to you on a Tuesday morning, but as always, from the Channel C Studios. Scott Dochterman, how you doing? You got a big summit this week in the Big Apple, right?
Yeah, it's our college basketball and college football teams are meeting this week in New York, going over strategies and what things we're going to cover over the next next year, next 6-8 months. So it's always a good time. Plus, we all get together. You know, a lot of us we see each other from time to time on the road, or we text each other. But it'll be good. I'm excited to say hi to everyone.
Yeah, awesome show last week, Scott. You'll have to give me the scoop on what. Who's going to make the playoff and everything after you get back. Maybe we can do next week's show. What you guys settled on at the summit, yeah.
a lot of we gonnas and probably not enough dids, but isn't that anything with journalists, and a lot of beer probably being drunk too, I'm sure.
There you go. Great show last week, Scott, with the kind of Beth Getz 2-year report card. And this week we're going to we're going to dive a little bit into a very newsy week of women's basketball. Not only did Lucy Olson make the Mystics, but Kate Martin got the start in the season opener for the Valkyries. Caitlin Clark is already delivering eye-popping performances and controversial moments. One game into the WNBA season. Jan Jensen also scooping up a big transfer while keeping another name who we thought was departing back home. Some more on some of that stuff later. We'll see what we have time for. But first off, Scott, the iClub circuit is always an interesting time of year. It's, in the off season for us, at least when you used to be on the Iowa beat. I know you still kind of are, but, the iClub can be a fruitful spot to get some maybe surprisingly good interviews, or maybe it doesn't turn into anything. It's more abbreviated now, and I've got kind of one thing we're going to dive into quite a bit here, but just kind of curious before we got going, like if you had any good iClub covering the iClub stories from any past Mays or Junes of your life.
I loved them all, man. They were great. I remember some that were really kind of funny at times. One of the great jokes that I'll remember Dolph saying one year on there, and I guess I could probably say it here, and that was one time he was talking to the iClub. I think it was in Newton at the Newton Race Speedway and Iowa Speedway, and he said at the Custer gathered all of his soldiers around when they're about ready to get massacred, and I've got good news and bad news, and he's like, and everybody's like, okay, what? He goes, the bad news is we're all gonna die, and they're like, well, what's the good news? He goes, we never have to go back to Nebraska. So I thought that was a funny line that he said from one of the iClubs. I remember I was an MC once for an iClub event. an O-line. Nice. It was Fran's first year, so I introduced Fran. So that was interesting. I kind of gave him a hard time, and he came back really hard. So it's like, okay, not doing that one anymore.
Well, I was at the Omaha event last Wednesday, and guess what, Scott? Dolph told that same joke. So
did he really?
In Omaha, yeah. So,
in Omaha. Yeah. Oh, my.
So he must have brought it back out for the Nebraska crowd.
Which that was like 2010 or 11, you know?
Yeah, wow. He's bringing out the hits, I guess. But anyway, Ben McCollum was there. Beth Getz was there. Tom Brands was supposed to be there, but did not make the trip. Tim Lester was kind of the highlight for me. A lot of these, for those kind of curious about it, like a lot of times, every stop's kind of different. You know how it's like your own. It's like you're on a road. You're in a road game for sure. You don't know how like the media is going to go or whatever. But sometimes you get like this. In this case, I had kind of set up a little bit because there was no one coordinating media. Like I had set up with somebody that McCollum knew I was going to try to talk to him, but like he started working the room like right away, and like he was like engrossed with fans, and so I had to wait, which is fine. They should come first, but I had to wait until after the event to talk to him. But before the event, I got Tim Lester talked to me for probably, I'm not exaggerating, probably 15 or 20 minutes maybe. Just kind of, there was a little side room there, and I had came into it, Scott, with a bunch of ideas, like what should I write? Like I have like all these ideas of what I could write about, but you don't know how much time you're going to get. And so, and even then I didn't know like if I was going to get that much time. But my idea I landed on, Scott, and this is what we're going to talk about, and this is what he and I talked about, was now that he's going into year 2 of Iowa's offense, is he more convinced now that the Shanahan system can work in college? Because Iowa remains the only place that's doing it, and it populates basically 2/3 of the NFL. I think he said 22 out of 32 teams have some version of it. And so, how convinced is he that this can work in college? I mean, and obviously he's not going to say, no, it's not going to work, but,
right.
But I came away more like energized about kind of the concept of it. And I think it's a fascinating, concept that no one else is trying it, but Iowa is, not known for offense, Scott, but as he said in his quote, I'm going to read it to you guys. I have a couple quotes I'm going to read to you guys throughout this. He said, "Someday it should be the biggest advantage ever. I mean, you should be able to get any quarterback in the country. It should be a huge advantage if you've got guys that want to play at the next level." So the thinking of that quote is, well, if you want to go play in the NFL and you're a quarterback, why not learn the Shanahan system now? They're basically running the same exact thing with the same language. So what are your thoughts on that? Before we get into how effective it can be in college.
That's the right way to think, if you can master it, because it is a challenge. Here's one of some of the things about the Shanahan system. More from Mike Shanahan, who was one of the great offensive minds of all time. He had a great system in Denver. That's what really allowed John Elway to flourish, become not only a great quarterback, but a Hall of Fame quarterback. They were very instrumental in zone blocking, cut blocking, which you really can't do as much anymore. So Kyle kind of morphed out of that a little bit more with the wide zone and some of those stretch plays and the mid zone, which worked so well at Iowa last year. But it is a very complicated offense. And it's challenging. The verbiage is incredibly long. Multiple sentences, multiple words mean, everything means something. And if you can't hear it and you're on the road, it could be a real bear, create real problem. So it is complicated. You've got to make sure you're throwing enough at your guys that they can pick it up, but not too much to where they get overwhelmed, because they still are college players. So I think that it can work, and I think it could be successful. And if he is successful at Iowa, it will work, and then other people will catch on as well. I think what you're seeing, for the most part, is more simplistic offenses have taken over. Allow my offensive players to make plays, or I'm going to bully ball you to death. And in this situation, it's a little bit of both, and it is complicated, but it fits into what Ferentz wants to do from a blocking perspective. So it's not entirely foreign. I think he's right on, but they have to prove it. I mean, you can't, and you wrote about it too, 130th in passing. Nobody's going to want to come to you if you're going to stay that with Mark Gronowski.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So you're going to have to cut that number in half probably, which I think they're capable of doing with Mark Gronowski.
Lots of interesting pieces of this interview. So there's only so much I included in the story, and it was a premium piece, so I'm not going to give away the whole story necessarily. But we did want to talk about it, but some stuff we're going to talk about wasn't in the story. So one thing he talked about with me was that this was something that, from his perspective, that Ferentz was seeking out, because as you know, Luke Getsy was also one of the final names, and he runs the Shanahan system. He was at Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur as well, and then the Bears, of course.
Oh yeah, he was great Bears with the offensive coordinator. Right there with Shane Waldron.
A lot of screens, So that also got me thinking, and that was too much to get into this particular story, but just is Ferentz? I mean, is Ferentz onto something here? I mean, again, it has to work, but here's my point, and I think this is part of the point that Lester's trying to make too. And we'll get to the quarterbacks here in a minute, how they have to, it's all about the quarterback. But if you're Ferentz, take what Iowa is good at, known for, and that's stability, it's development, high school recruiting. And if you can get these guys here 4 to 5 years, not saying it, and Lester doesn't say it takes 4 to 5 years. You're seeing it clicking for some of these guys in year 2, okay? Like the receivers. We talked about that a couple of shows ago. If you can lean into, hey, stability here, learn the Shanahan system here, develop into an NFL player here, offensively, obviously. Those are strengths of the Iowa program. That's what they're known for. Then they don't have to use the portal. Because you can't, there's no way, in my opinion, you could run the Shanahan system with a bunch of transfers. It's just not going to work. We saw the passing game last year. The spacing just wasn't there. The timing wasn't there. It's so much about timing, reading. So curious on that. Your thoughts on that too is I really don't think Ferentz is some mastermind offensive guy, but is he onto something here for wanting to bring an NFL? I mean, he's always kind of wanted an NFL offense here, but the NFL offense to college.
Well, I'm going to give Kirk his props. I mean, yeah, he's not necessarily an offensive mastermind, but what he is he's a master developer of people. I mean, the people who know him best rave about him, and he has his finger on the pulse. I always said that Iowa is the most self-aware program in the country because it knows what it is, it knows what it can get. Now, sometimes it doesn't maximize that, and we've seen that with the offense for quite a while, actually, up until recently. And I think what he saw and what he wants to make work is how can you still develop what you excel at, which is zone blocking, run and hit, basically is what it is. And, and Brian Ferentz used a lot of colorful words when I wrote about this specifically a few years ago. It was an awesome story that we can't run anymore because it's in the New York Times and we're not allowed to swear, but it was great stuff on, one example was a bus smoking a deer on the way back from a game, just obliterate them. That's the way we want to be when we're out there running and hitting. But how do you marry that physical running presence along the offensive line and your blocking scheme with an advanced level of passing game without it looking like oil and water, which we saw with Greg Davis and Kirk? It just did not work. And this is the best system for that, because what we've seen is tremendous tight ends at Iowa take that next step. George Kittle obviously being number one. TJ Hawkinson's in that system. Sam Laporta to some extent with Ben Johnson's not the same, but it's similar. But they all excel in it. And so when you can use that plus the receivers and a quarterback who's capable of moving, but still block the same way, use the same tenets, but just adjust your aiming points, which is what they do. I mean, they're with the mid zone in particular, but they aim for screws on the helmet, not play side number. That's about a 6-inch difference, but you saw that the ability for them to get to their aiming points was so much more successful last year because of it. And those are minor tweaks, but they're really important tweaks. And I think that's what I see from Kirk is he sees an opportunity to continue to coach technically the way he wants to, but marry it with a system that's not altered. It's not, hey, we want an air raid type where your guys' hands are on their knees, and they're 2-point stance blocking, or it's not just, you got to get away from the bully ball part of it because you're not coaching that way up front. You're coaching run and hit. You're not coaching wall and off. You're not coaching like Paul Christ at Wisconsin. So I think it's the perfect system for Iowa, provided that you have the right people to do it. And I think Gronowski has shown an aptitude. I mean, he's got a master's now in mechanical engineering.
That's right. Yeah.
I couldn't I probably wouldn't pass one of those classes, and here he is, so he can learn this. And the other part for him that's really good is Zach Lujan, who's now at Northwestern. He also ran this type of offense at South Dakota State, or at least the same verbiage. So it really works out there. So I think it's a really good system for Iowa under Kirk Ferentz.
Great analysis there, especially with the aiming points and all that stuff. Appreciate that. A couple other quotes that I wanted to lean into. This is completely slightly different anyway. He mentioned about he's had to make some changes from year 1 to year 2. And he goes, we've made 2 or 3 drastic changes in route running. Basically outlined that the hash marks in college being in a different spot, that they run out of space on the boundary side much quicker than you do in the NFL. Yeah. And, it was something that they didn't adjust for. You bring the system in, and he's like, yeah, your out passes are being caught 3 yards out of bounds,
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so they had to, junk some stuff. And he said it's really helped in spring ball. The spacing has been way better. I think we saw that, I think, with the just effectiveness of the wide receivers. So I thought that was also kind of a Tim Lester spin on, and he talked about Bud Meyer being involved in this too. And now he's got these other analysts too, which it all makes sense. It's kind of the Iowa spin, to make it work in college type of thing. I'm asking him, can it work in college? Well, here's a way you can make it work in college. You got to make these tweaks. It's not quite just transitioning it over.
Yeah. And that's what's fascinating, because it seems at the forefront like, oh, duh, you should be able to do it. But when you've got a system that's so, not only complicated, but it is convoluted, and it's, thousands of plays deep, because you're running the same play with personnel doing different things, or, it gets really challenging. And yeah, I mean, when you're talking about, spacing and alignment, how these players line up matter so much to the play's development. And if you're running a boundary side play and you're on that hash mark, I mean, you have no space. And so you run 3 steps and an out, you better hit him when he's making the cut. And even then, that's a really hard catch to make in a short field. So, it's good for him to do that. And I think that's part of the feedback, that he can have. And wasn't on the road, as we know, during this spring and this winter. He stayed back to analyze and talk to the quarterbacks. And I think, self-scouting was really pivotal and important. And as well as, things like, incorporating John Budmeyer, Warren Ruggiero, and Billy Vandermerkt, who's with the Jets and with Western Michigan. So now they can kind of figure things out and tweak and move, and then figure out how does it work with the players you have, because you can't, it's not one size fit all. You just can't say, in his case, well, we used to run this play with Christian Watson. Well, you don't have somebody who's 6'6", and dynamic athletic. You just don't. I mean, Tucker Kraft, fantastic athlete that, of course, one player does have a lot of experience with Tucker Kraft, but and I think Addison Ostrenga is really good, but I don't know that he's Tucker Kraft. So you've got to figure out how that works for your personnel. And that's what's probably been a good thing for him, that, Tyler Barnes is a lot more energetic when it comes to recruiting and, wanting to get out there. And I think Tim is good on campus, but overall it's, I think this has been a, really good chance for them to do some self-scouting, and it sounds like it's paying off.
Yeah, and to your point, he's coaching the quarterbacks, and now the day I talked to him was the day that Jeremy Hecklinski had arrived, so he had his first session or whatever that day, and so you look at Iowa's quarterbacks depth chart now, and of course there's Gronowski at the top, and then you got Jackson Stratton's the veteran of the room, he's a redshirt junior, but you've got 3 freshman and another one coming. So Hank Brown, redshirt freshman, Hecklinski, redshirt freshman, Jimmy Sullivan, true freshman, and of course Ryan Fitzgerald will get here pretty soon. But those 3 guys that have, at least a little bit of experience now in this system, like he was telling me that, and this didn't go in the article, but just like Jimmy Sullivan was watching something on TV, I think it was a John Gruden thing or something, and they were talking about like certain play, and they use the exact same language. Like, yeah, I know what that is. Like this is Jimmy Sullivan. He's supposed to be in high school right now. He knows what this is. These guys are. The fact that Lester, what I'm saying is, your point being, the fact that he can teach these guys, all freshmen now. If one of these 3 guys can get it and be that guy, Scott, that quarterback that they need in the future. You got Gronowski this year.
Isn't Hank a sophomore? I think Hank Brown's a sophomore. He had 2 years at Auburn. So.
Oh yeah. Well, he saved a year. Right, you're right. Yeah. Still, but still nonetheless, young guys.
Right.
And so I appreciate you correcting me there. But his point being that if you can get this, it's all about the quarterback. And I'll read one more quote here as we finish it up. He goes, "Because there's layers to this thing, and there's more that you can do at the line of scrimmage. We have not asked the quarterback to do a ton yet. Once we get a quarterback that really understands it, we'll really hand him the keys and let it really run. In the meantime, it can be very effective, but I'm looking forward to the day when we have a guy that we can hand the keys to and say, if you want to change it, change it. In other words, at the line of scrimmage, like they do in the NFL."
Mm-hmm. And do you think that's something, Chad, that they'll probably do? Let's say Gronowski is the guy that we think he is, and it may not benefit him to do it, or if he's going to do it, say do it in game 3, give it a shot against UMass, because you don't think that's going to be a competitive game, but put it in that situation to where he'll have the chance to do it when you play Penn State or at Wisconsin or Minnesota at home, games that. When you get midway through the season, you're going to want your senior who's learning this. Now, he may not be ready to do it completely day one, but I guess, Albany and UMass might be the games where you just say, you know what, give it a shot, see what you can do and do it. But, he's right. Tim is that you want to make sure that your quarterback's capable of doing it. Otherwise, it's effective, but it's at its best when you have a guy who it's 3rd and 6 and he looks at the field, he gets you in and out of a play. And then even if it breaks down, then he can do whatever he wants. He can run for a first down, which obviously Gronowski could do, or he can throw off schedule. I mean, there's so many different options. It makes it fun. So I think it may take a little bit of time, because he still hasn't, he's just now going to start throwing to his receivers, for real in a couple weeks. And then, then you get into training camp. It's going to take some time to learn it, but I think it's got the potential. They're going to have to survive a couple of games early, just kind of, with the training wheels on, but then they're going to have to probably take them off come Indiana, I think, and let it fly.
Yeah, when we were talking, he did say that's going to be a challenge just in the first year with Gronowski, but just because the verbiage is so difficult, but he also he also said he compared it to like learning Spanish. It's basically what it is. You learn a language, and once you know it. And he, I think one of his quote was, I'm paraphrasing, is that's why you see Baker Mayfield, leave a team on a Wednesday, sign with the Rams on Thursday, and start on Sunday, because it's the same thing. You don't have to learn the system. And that's the point, is he's hearing from NFL teams that Mason Richmond, hey, he's calling out the jet protections in our meetings already. It's like, what? How does he know that? And it's like, well, we run that,
Yeah.
And same thing with Caleb Johnson, Luke Lachey. Lester was telling me, I think I put it in the article, that one of his best friends who coached at Western Michigan is the tight ends coach with the Houston Texans. And Lachey, they run it down there. And he knows Lachey knows the Shanahan system. I mean, that's huge, because he said that's, when you're going to the NFL, one of the toughest things to do is stick right away. Like if you're kind of on the, you gotta, it's not for long, right? So,
right.
If you have this background in the Shanahan system, not just for quarterbacks, all offensive players, presumably that's going to benefit you at the next level at this point, because there's just not a lot of college teams that are going to be able to pull this off, I don't think. And I'm not saying Iowa will, but that's the theory, and that's what we're talking about.
Well, and that's what you said, as far as, Mason Richmond's a 7th-round draft pick. Connor Colby's a 7th-round draft pick. They could walk into those rooms in Seattle and San Francisco. Obviously, San Francisco is coached by Kyle Shanahan, and they know exactly what they're talking about day one. There's no, Iowa already is been cemented, for its offensive line play, because teams don't have to teach them how to put their hand in the dirt. They already know how. They already know what techniques to use. It's just a matter of improving them from there. But now they also know the verbiage to go along with it. It's, you're getting a 2nd-year player immediately. And if you're Mason Richmond, it's like, I trust this guy. He's smart. He understands it, and he knows how to block. Now, will he be a starter? That's way out there, but he could be a guy who's makes your roster, and that's a benefit. And that's by learning these systems. And I think if players pay attention to this and not the dollar signs, that this is something that really benefits them. I mean, the dollar signs are going to be there. That's going to be a factor. But if you get into the situation of, I can make a little more here, but you might propel yourself and become an NFL player better at a place like Iowa or another system that's really comparable.
Yeah, and I think part of the sales pitch too is, even if you're not starting at Iowa, you're learning the system, the system that's going to benefit you at the next level. So, that's at least the sales pitch. So it kind of makes sense. What do you think of the idea of that Iowa can get some of the best quarterbacks in the country? Obviously, it's probably not super realistic, but, given the dollar signs that you're talking about. But what do you think about that? Could you get a guy that wants to learn? If I think Iowa has to prove it, right? Prove it this year, probably, to even have a shot at some kind of pipeline to get going. You're off.
You're going to have to show it. You can't just say it. That's going to have to. Last year they averaged 27. Almost 28 points a game. That's good, but you got to get better than that if you want to go get a top tier 5-star quarterback, somebody like that. And you're going to have to throw some serious money around too to do it. That's going to be a major reason. I think that's ambitious. That's fine. And if you can prove on the field and you can show the system, this is how this works. You come here, you can even be better, and here's how. And that's, and as the drive for 325 enters more and more out of the rearview mirror, and it's in the past, then players today only care about this year and last year, then it's realistic, I suppose. But you've got to make sure that you're not just blowing smoke either. And the numbers last year were not good in the passing game. 131 yards per game. That was better than the year before when it was 118, but it's still not good at all. It's 130th. Michigan and Army and Navy and Air Force, I think, were the other four underneath them, which is funny that Michigan was, but
Bears draft pick Colston Loveland in there.
Yeah, I know. He was like the Sam Laporta of that.
He was. Yeah. That's probably why Ben Johnson liked him. He's like,
I know.
Hey, there's a good tight end from crappy offense.
I know. I've seen this game before. They don't have a quarterback and they have a great tight end, but but I mean, going back to a point you made a few minutes ago, I mean, what Iowa has to do is build some stability in that room too. They have had monstrous attrition at receiver and at quarterback, but specifically quarterback. Every single freshman that they brought in since 2017 has hit the portal. Every single one, including Petrus. A little different situation than the others, but still. You look at the ones that they've brought in through the portal, even walk-ons have hit the portal. Cade McNamara, Deacon Hill, Brendan Sullivan, even Tommy Paholski. So you've had just as unbelievable amount of attrition since Nate Stanley. You've got to stop that, and Gronowski's a stopgap. He could go out and win the Heisman. He's still a stopgap. He's a 1-year guy. You've got to build it. And with Hank Brown, with, Jeremy Heklinski, whether Jimmy Sullivan, or next year with Cash Herrera or whoever else they bring in, or, maybe even Jackson Stratton, if he shows some improvement. They want to try to build that stability to have multiple years at that position, because that was what Iowa was known for, if nothing else, for a long time. Even Petrus was a 3-year starter. Wasn't overly successful, and I think the system was part of that. But Nate Stanley had 3 years. Beathard had 2. Rudock had 2, so did Vandenberg. Stanzi had 3. I mean, so it's been a multiple year guys. Drew Tate before that, had 3. Yeah. So it's just really, this has been rare, but you've got to, and you're going to get 50-50 anyway. You're going to lose half your guys, but you don't want to lose all your guys. That's where they've been really a problem lately, last few years.
And that's what they've stated that, and Kirk Ferentz said that at the Polk County I Club. That's what they're shooting for, to get to the point where they don't have to keep hitting the portal every year for a quarterback. And so it does seem like, at least, classification wise, freshman, sophomore, they are at least trending in that direction. But anything else you want to add on that? Should we move to the next?
Yeah, just one thing else is it's very expensive to do that too.
Yeah,
it is, and
true.
Gronowski is north of $2 million. I mean, it's just getting quarterbacks like that is not cheap, and you can still do that and pay that, but you'd like to get an investment on your return earlier when you don't have to pay it. Meaning that you would rather, if let's say Hank Brown, he's a backup this year. Next year, you pay him a little more if he's the starter. You get a great year. Then you pay him for that 1 year, but you already got some money in the bank. You already collected on him. Or, Jimmy Sullivan or Jeremy Heklinski or whomever. You want a year or so of not having to pay a heavy amount. But then, now you're going to have to deal with that. And so, you could still afford it if you're Iowa, but it's not the smart way to go, because then you forfeit paying somebody else. And, even with the House case just about finalized, we expect it to be finalized maybe in the next day or two. So once that gets through, you can still pay, but you don't want to have to pay too much. It's bad business.
Yeah, great points by you across the board there, Scott. Appreciate that. Thanks to GameDay Men's Health for sponsoring our show every week. And shout out to at City Guy Mallet. Yeah. Mallet Meyer had a great tweet. Yeah. Said, best part of the week, besides when the pod drops, of course, with a shot of the GameDay Men's Health. I think that was the North Liberty office, was it not?
Yep, absolutely.
And it's he put the caption, here for the tea.
Yeah.
So well done. Made me laugh. And we're there for the tea. That's right. GameDay Men's Health nailed it with testosterone replacement therapy. It helps your mood, helps your energy, helps your exercise, helps your performance on and off the field. Get connected with GameDay Men's Health for a private, no obligation, free consultation at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Or just stop by their offices in either Ankeny, West Des Moines, or North Liberty. So, running's going good, Scott, for me. I'm just trucking along here, getting ready for my next road race. So,
wow,
feeling good.
Yeah.
Feel good going out to New York? You get down about 45 pounds going out there.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to be running away from the rats and stuff. I mean, no, I think everybody should, if you got, I always get my shots on Monday. So just a reminder, next week with Memorial Day, you might want to, if you forgot to reschedule for later this week or next Tuesday, you're going to want to do that. So no, I'm looking forward to it. I'm thinking best part about this might be the flights where, I'll be able to sit in my seat a little easier. And if I get stuck next to somebody, that it won't be as crowded, and I'm kind of claustrophobic. So, less of me makes a little difference.
That's awesome. Well, a guy that looks like he's just loaded with tea is Kalen Walker, the fastest man in the Big Ten. He makes it into Legends and Listeners. I think it's our first Iowa track conversation. But man, if you guys have not seen this race, Kalen Walker, a fifth-year senior from Eddyville, Iowa, just goes out to Oregon, basically the home of track, and wins the Big Ten 100-meter dash. Beats USC track star Eddie Nikita by 1/100th of a second, and Oregon football's fastest player was also in that final. What do you think of that, Scott?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean,
Eddyville,
you're talking about Southern Iowa boy, being able to win the Big Ten with a 10-1-8 in the 100. I mean, that's just phenomenal. I you're happy for him, but it's good to see that. And it's good to see somebody, again, small town kid being able to pull that off. And I know some of the responses that I've seen on our friend Tom Cakert's message board were like, oh, can he play football? Get him out there doing that. But I think he might have a future in track. So well done, Kalen. What a tremendous race he ran.
Yeah, no kidding. And he's the one that ran the 40 at Kinnick, right? Didn't he run it in 4.15?
Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah, exactly. So
that's for real. That's for real. Man, good job, Joey Woody, getting him to Iowa and developing him, my fellow City High alum. I love track. Yeah. My son gets to go to the state meet this week as an alternate in the 4x8 as a freshman. So pretty cool moment for him.
Oh, that's great.
His team won their regional, and it's a lot of fun to relive that. That was my favorite sport in high school. Tons of women's basketball, Scott. What do you want to start? You want to start with the Caitlin Clark controversy here?
Sure.
I don't know.
Let's start with Caitlin and the situation that just never seems to end, right?
One game in, man. We got controversy. Hot takes everywhere.
I know, and it's I'm like, do we have to do this again?
I know.
Do we have to go through this again, man? Just can we just talk basketball? No. Let's have and it really, I don't even know why it was a flagrant foul. It wasn't like Reese was going up for a layup and she undercut her or anything. I mean, it was a hard foul. It was a decent foul, but it did its job, and I just didn't see it as a flagrant foul. And then for Angel to get up and chase after her, and then subsequently there's allegations that somebody said a bad word to her or something. I don't know. But anyway, it's it takes away from an incredible performance. In the season debut, Caitlin Clark has a triple-double. Her third one in her career, 2010 and 10. They crush the sky. And instead, all we're talking about is Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and this negativity. And it's like, if you guys don't stop this, you're going to slaughter the golden goose. And somebody needs to say that and frankly, I got to be careful on how I phrase this, but if the allegations are proven false, first of all, if they're proven true, get whoever it is, a fan or whatever, out of there, never let them come back in. I don't know. There's no need for any kind of racial, things being said at a player. But if they're false, there needs to be some punishment for that too. You can't just hurl out those accusations because it really takes away from the game and you're, defaming a a fan base. So I would hope that if it came back that, something is done one way or the other, because let's get it back to on the floor, because Caitlin is such as we know, we've covered her for years, and, just such a dynamic player and charismatic person, as famous as there is of any athlete in the country. Yeah. And you want to make it about that, because her following is the reason why the WNBA is thriving.
No question about it. And if it was possible, I probably gained even more affection for Clark. I thought it was a smart basketball play.
Yeah.
She saw Angel shove her own teammate in the back to no call.
Yeah. Right.
And responded with a clean, hard foul. It's certainly a hard foul, but you do that as she said after the game, it's a take foul. You put Angel Reese to the line for 2. Don't give her the layup.
Yeah.
That's smart basketball,
Or give her 2 shots, a rebound in between 2 shots, because she'll miss the first one and then get the rebound and put it back. So yeah, putting her on the line and letting her go 1 for 2 or 0 for 2 from the line. Right.
Yeah, and so I thought she handled it afterwards, really well. It's incredible to me just how well she handles the PR side of things. With honestly, it's at times it's with no training. It's just the way she is. So she's like, let's not make it any more than it is, and and even saying, I'll pay for your fine, Aaliyah, or whatever.
Yeah.
She's just high character, and I think there's so many reasons why fans love her, more than just that she can hit these logo threes. It's all that stuff too. Pretty and let's talk about the performance real quick. The Fever. It's one game, but man, what we saw in Carver too, it just looked like a team that was going to be. There's just so much better coach this year. That's not even an argument with Stephanie White, and Caitlin just seems like she knows now what it takes, and she spent the whole offseason bulking up, ready for the punishment, and now she's got teammates that can go hit the shots. So I think she's just going to load up with assists all year. She's going to get teammates open threes all year long. That's my prediction.
Yeah, this is good. I think she's going to win the MVP, and I think that the Fever will at least be in the finals. I don't know if they'll win it or not, but I think they're that good. They've got a completely different vibe. And last year they were in over their head. Their coach was clearly in over her head. Had no business.
She played Clark at the 2 at one point.
I know. Christy side, and she didn't want her shooting and stuff. Clark just seems to me, Caitlin now is just more relaxed. She's more like she was as a senior. Mm-hmm. She sees the floor. She takes her shots. There's no fear. It's almost like last year she was playing with this reservation. Like, I can't do what I want to do because I don't want to get in trouble with people. And now it's like, Caitlin, you just be Caitlin. And that's what works. And you've got players around her that fit her skill set, that complement her on the floor, and I had a conversation with Kelsey Mitchell, at Carver. I talked to her for about 5 minutes, kind of outside the locker room. And I asked her, I said, what was your off season like? You're a baller, why did you come back? And she's like, well, I wasn't sure I wanted to come back, but then Caitlin and Aaliyah Boston came to me and they're like, we really want you on our team. And she's like, that made me feel, like I was wanted. And then in Stephanie White, the way she kind of talked to her, it was like, you got a big role in this offense. And so now you've got 3 big scorers, but then you also got, Lexi Hull and, Sophie Cunningham didn't play the other day, but you got all these players that really complement one another. And the vibe is so good. Last year, it just seemed so disjointed among the players. They just didn't have a good vibe together, but this year it looks completely different. And I expect them to be, among the best teams in the WNBA all year. And, and you do look at the difference between them and the Sky. It's just, night and day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This won't be a Fever podcast every week or anything, but it was a pretty eventful week in the WNBA. As I mentioned, Lucy made the team in Washington. Back in Iowa City, some big news on Monday. Iowa comes up with its second big transfer get, Emily Rodriguez of Central Florida, all Big 12 freshman player, originally from Dominican Republic. She picks the Hawkeyes. She's got 3 years left, Scott. So in Iowa now with 7 sophomores on the roster and 3 freshmen. So this is and then no juniors and 4 seniors this coming season. Rodriguez averaged 11.9 points, 5.3 boards per game. Started most games. She was hurt for just a little bit of the season, so she ended up playing 25 of their 30 games. But really neat story. I mean, came to the U.S. I talked to her this afternoon, Monday afternoon, and she came to the U.S. when she was almost 17 years old, so she didn't know any English, and ended up she came here with her dad and grandma to play to try to get a basketball opportunity because she realized she was really good at it, and it's. And now Iowa City kind of becomes this next step in her journey. And someone I talked to said, she does have WNBA potential. So she's got shot creating skills. She's obviously still very new to basketball. Has only played it 7-8 years. So pretty good pickup for the women. Sounds like she'll play the 3 spot. So that'll be interesting. Since Kylie Feuerbach plays the 3. But the bottom line is, from when I talked to Jan Jensen for that big piece I did a few weeks ago, she wanted to get bigger. She, moving Hannah Stulke to the 4 allows Ava Hyde and Layla Hayes to be the 5, and now you've got Stulke's at the 4. You got a 6-foot player here at the 3, as long with Feuerbach, who's also 6 foot. And Addie Deal's a big girl. I mean, she's right there around 6 feet. It's going to be, I don't know. I think it's going to be a pretty deep team. I don't know if it's going to have a star next year necessarily, and that's no offense to Stulke. I think Stulke's great, but they don't have like that surefire like go-to star right now. But I think they have a lot of depth.
Yeah, they do, and I'm interested to see how players accept their roles, because Rodriguez probably figures she will start. But maybe not. Maybe maybe you convince her if you want Feuerbach to be on the floor to start the game, maybe you convince Emily Rodriguez to try to be the 6th person of the year in the Big Ten. You're going to play starters minutes. You're just not going to get your name announced, and then you have, some other pretty good freshmen too. I expect Tegan Mullaney to have a real big jump. I think she's due for a jump. This was kind of an up and down year for her, but, consistency wise, I think Taylor Stremlow is going to be in the same boat. Will Taylor McCabe start or come off the bench? Will Chit Chat start at point? She seems to be the one true point guard that they have, unless somebody adjusts that. So, but now I think they've got enough depth. And they've got enough pieces to make some of those adjustments, but it's going to be interesting to me again to see, what if it's Kylie coming off the bench, or what if it's Taylor McCabe coming off the bench? I mean, will they accept that and be good teammates? And you'd hope that they would, or if it's the younger ones that do the same, So, but that that's all within the team. They can figure that out themselves. But I like the way this team is forming, and I think getting this addition really is helpful for them.
Yeah.
Versatile, please.
Yeah, agreed. We can talk more about that. The season gets closer. But do you, just kind of curious, do you know anything about if like college players at some point are going to get 5 years eligibility? Do you think that it could happen in the near future? Or is that too far off?
That's something that's been discussed, and that's something that I think I know football has been kind of pushing it, and it's. I think once again, house kind of gets cleared, that it's probably that, some of they've kind of come to that point of, we're kind of tired of trying to count games for players, and like for, football being, let's make it easy. I mean, you get 4 games, but once you hit the postseason, they don't count. So it's like you play in, 4 games and you sit out, but then your team goes to the Big Ten championship game and you're there, or the Big Ten play-in games when they come about, and then you make the playoffs, and then you could play in 6, 7, 8 games and still be a red shirt. But then if you played, 6, 7, 8 games in October and November, you're not, you don't get your red shirt. So there's a heavy discussion, and whether that kind of permeates through the other sports, I would imagine it'd probably have to be a universal 5 years of eligibility, but it's, but I also don't know that it's at the forefront yet, but it will be heavily discussed soon. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was just kind of curious, because number one, does Jan even try to redshirt anybody, potentially a Stremlo or a Mulaney, just kind of, buying another year for some of them, or Sydney Falter comes back as a grad assistant. What if they grandfather in a 5th year? They got one scholarship left.
Wow. No, that's some awesome speculation and hyperbole.
I got to give credit to John Bonenkamp on that one.
Okay.
We were talking about that on text, but
okay.
How about that for a little theory? I thought that was a pretty good one.
Hey, if that would be, it's like Kirk always says, your best recruits are the ones who come back for their last year. If that can happen. But then what do you do with your other players? I guess,
redshirt. Well, I guess you don't redshirt. Yeah,
it's like you're Emily Rodriguez and you came here and then all of a sudden, Sydney Falter's jumping in. I mean, it is something that I don't anticipate that happening at this time, but I fail to be surprised by anything that happens at the NCAA level. I would just think that this late in the process, it's probably something that would have gotten heavy discussion in February or March as opposed to May or June.
Well, anyway, that's full speculation for people out there. Don't say Chad Leistikow or anybody said Falter's coming back for a 5th year. That's just a fun little wrinkle. I was curious what you thought about, what you knew about the 5th year. Anyway, good stuff. What else were we going to talk about? Oh yeah, you got a fun little project coming up, and I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it at all for the Athletic. It sounded really cool to me, but since I don't know much about it, I'll let you boil it down for our listeners.
Yeah, we're this week, it kind of coincides with our summit, so it's these pieces you can kind of get and put away, but it's 25 for 25, and it's like the best 25 teams over the last 25 years or the first 25 years of the century. And today was teams. We have coaches. We have coaches. I'm trying to think of all of them. Games. That was interesting to be a part of that discussion. I didn't write that one. And then my case was like news stories. And sometimes the news stories could also be field. Like one I'll throw out there, like Tebow Mania. Johnny Manziel, Cam Newton situation, both on and off the field. You have those, and then you have paying the players and which ones count, which ones don't. You have, just so many different aspects that really kind of filter in. And so, that was part of it. But the teams came out on Monday, and that was Stu Mandel's subject. And so it was fascinating because he's like, I'm having a tough time picking number one, and it's between LSU in 2019 and Miami in 2001. And it was between those two. And you think about it, it's like, okay, well, LSU, most dynamic offense of all time with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. And, I mean, God, that's a Pro Bowl team, let alone a college team. Yeah. That's a first team all pro team. But then you look at Miami and 15 first round draft picks. When you got Andre Johnson and Ed Reed, the Hall of Famers. Sean Taylor was a backup. You had Antrell Roll was a backup. All three running backs, NFL guys, not just. Frank Gore is going to be a Pro Bowl or a Hall of Famer. Willis McGahee was really good. Clinton Portis, Jeremy Shockey, on and on and on. And Vince Wilfork, he's been a finalist for the Hall of Fame. And, Sean Taylor, I think I mentioned, and Jonathan Vilma, and it's so I was like pro Miami because I said, even though the eras are a little bit different, that defense was unbelievable. I mean, they allowed less than 10 points a game, and then you throw on the offensive weapons who are in the Hall of Fame. It's kind of tough, but that's being said, but that's just kind of the debates, and I'm sure everybody took it really well, when they made their own. But coaches is fascinating too, because you're debating, and Iowa has one that's on the list, and he's, but what point, and where do you put him, and how do you rank him, and how do you rank guys like him and Kyle Whittingham and that have really successful careers. Bill Snyder over the 25-year period, not counting his whole entire career, because his entire career was different. How do you rate them versus national championship guys? I mean, Saban's number one. That's not even a given. But then others, how do they filter in? It's
Scott Frost.
I think I had him when I did like a ranking of the 40 coaches in Big Ten hired since Ferentz. This is like 4 or 5 years ago. And I think I said he was the biggest disappointment in Big Ten history.
It really was. I thought it was a can't miss. I mean, I assumed it would be anyway, by the way all the coverage was.
Exactly. Yeah. But right. But if we're looking, and this is kind of off the cuff here, but if we're looking at the top 5, let's just go top 5 Ferentz teams of this period. I mean, 02 is number 1 for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no one that really challenges it. After that, though, it does get a little bit interesting. I think 09 is probably number 2. But then you've got 15. And then I think 20 is vastly underrated. I think that team had a few more games in it. If it got to play Michigan, if it got to play in the Music City Bowl, or if it got to play even a Big Ten championship, would have been just a different kind of team. You've got 04, and and then we've got
the 19 team was really good.
Yeah.
18 had a lot of NFL guys.
Right. They won 9 games. 19 won 10. And had the Orange or the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah.
So how would you kind of rate maybe 2 through 5? Where would you go?
Boy, I think I think you're right. I think I still have to put 09 just because of they're the highest ranked Ferentz team, the highest finishing team ranking wise. They finished 7th that year, 8th in 2002, 8th in 2003, 8th in 2004.
Yeah.
They finished, that's a Rose Bowl year, 10th,
I think. Yeah.
So, so in that sense, I think, you start 9-0 that year too. I mean, the high wire acts kind of make it interesting though. No run game.
Yeah, right.
So, if you actually put them up against the 19 team, I don't know if they'd win. But you still have to I don't know. Yeah, I'm struggling with it. I'm kind of talking myself around it because I don't know how I would do it. I guess I'd probably say 09. 04 defense, though, so good. I mean, as challenged as they were in the run game, that defense. I mean, I guess you'd have to take 09 because of the D-line, I guess. Claiborne was just crazy that year. Mm-hmm. You get Anger in there.
Mm-hmm. You get Amari Spivey and Sean Prater, and both were first. 3 straight, and Tyler Sash. I mean, you're talking about 3 first-team All Big Ten defensive backs. Mm-hmm. AJ Eads, who's going to be a commissioner at some point.
Right.
Brian Bulaga in 09. Yeah. Brian Bulaga left tackle. Tony Moyaki tight end. Ricky Stanzi was a 5th-round draft pick. It's really weird, as you said, that they couldn't run the ball very well. They averaged only 3 yards a carry. I would go 09 second. Mm-hmm. I think that they were defensively they were elite, and you got to also look at their schedule. They played, I think, 4 teams that won 10 games. And they lost to one of them in an overtime, and that was Ohio State out there with a freshman quarterback. Penn State won 11 games. Georgia Tech won 11 games. Wisconsin won 10. So they had a really good year. And then I'd probably go 15 because that defense was really good too. Underrated on offense because they ran for 35 touchdowns and averaged like 4.6 a carry. They were better.
Carroll had a decent year that year too. Actually, 6 touchdown catches.
And Beathard was a difference maker. Mm-hmm. I'd probably then go 04.
Yeah,
because they did claim a championship. They played really well at the end of the year. Won their last 8 games, I think it was, and the greatest finish maybe in Iowa football history in that LSU game.
Yep.
Beat Nick Saban, beat LSU, and that defense was probably the best of the Ferentz era. Well, I take that back. I would say 22 might have been better, a little bit better even.
08 was pretty good too.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, that's and then number 5 is interesting though because there's a lot to think about. 08, incredible running game with Sean Green, awesome defense, passing game. This wasn't that good. Yeah, 18 and 19. Had some really good offense, not as great defense.
If you could have had a left guard play. You had a good left guard play that year.
Imagine if you could have just picked one up at a gas station.
Oh man,
yeah.
That Penn State game. Anyway,
yeah. So I'd probably go 20 actually.
Yeah,
I'm high on 20.
I know. Yeah, no, that was a really good team. They could run the ball, play defense. You had Linderbaum. You still had Jackson, right?
Yeah. Jackson left tackle. You had Sam Laporta. You had Smith Marset. You had
Goodson.
Brandon Smith. Goodson was first team All Big Ten.
Yeah.
Defense. Campbell came back mid-season after his mono, and Chauncey Golston, Davian Nixon was Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
That was if quarterback play was sketchy, with Spencer, but I think overall. I remember just watching the tournament or the playoffs after that, thinking the only team, I'm not saying I would win those games, but the only team that I thought Iowa didn't have a chance with was Alabama. Was really, really good that year. But playing Ohio State or Clemson or Notre Dame, I thought Iowa was in that game. I just, by the end of the year, they won their last 6 games by an average of almost 22 points. They beat Wisconsin by 3 touchdowns. They beat Penn State by 20 points, Michigan State by 42, 28, it was like 35-7 against Minnesota. There was only like one close game in there, and that was Nebraska. So
yeah,
I would go that one, but I'm not, I can be swayed.
Yeah. I'd probably, just as far as how good the team was. Yeah. But it's a shortened season. It's a COVID year. It was a weird year.
Oh yeah, no question.
Just that first game of the year was, they probably win that 9 out of 10 times most years, but they didn't have any of their linebackers that day. And it was Spencer's first start. And, empty West Lafayette Stadium and David Bell.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you don't do 2020 and, you only play 8 games, I just had a lot of, I thought the 19 team I thought that was a really good team. Stanley's last year, you had good quarterback play. You had good receivers that year. You had Wirfs, you had Epinesa. You drilled USC in the Holiday Bowl. It's just like, how did you lose? How did you score 3 points against Michigan? And
I could tell you.
Yeah, well,
you're inside the 36-yard line 8 times, or 6 times or 8 times, and you come away with 3 points.
Yeah, I think they were
10 sacks. Run the ball once in a while.
Yeah, so I think the 19 team, I guess I would put give them the nod personally. But man, you can make a case for 08, make a case for 18, make a case for 20.
What about the 2 teams that won the West?
Yeah. 21 was kind of interesting year, wasn't it? I mean, they did go 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they beat Penn State.
Yeah.
Beat Maryland 51-14. Had Linderbaum. I mean, I'm just thinking about that team.
Laporta.
Yeah.
Goodson, but there was. I guess I would struggle putting it in the top 5 because they had clear deficiencies, and that caught up with them in the losses.
Cornerback too.
Yeah, right. But you think about like their losses were, other than the Kentucky one and the Citrus Bowl, were decisive. Purdue at home, at Wisconsin and Michigan, and then you think back the other West Division team in 23. That one had the worst offense in Big Ten history.
I could never go for that team.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it was the worst statistical
quarterback's
one.
by Deacon Hill. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
It takes it out of the running.
But
it's
what
19, man. It's 19. Right. I mean, that Wisconsin game, they lost by 2 points on a 2-point conversion. Penn State, they lose by 5 at home, and you lose Michigan 10-3 when you should have won that game. It wasn't that great of a Michigan team.
Yeah. I would probably pick at 6. I would go 20 for 5.
Yeah.
I think 20 was their losses were that Purdue game. You know, again, COVID messed it up, coaching messed it up. You know, I remember towards the end of the half, you know, they get this big play, they get all the way down to the 10, and it's like they went quick with the run, and it got stopped, and it's just, what are you doing? And then the Northwestern game, you know, you're up 17-0, and you know, play calling. Let's call it what it is. I mean, you have your pretty good defense in Northwestern, and you have your quarterback throw 51 times, and you're up 17-0, and then you're only trailing by a point, and you're still having him do that. Okay.
Yeah. They probably thought their receivers were going to be better. I mean, they were decent, but they didn't need to lean on them that much. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah. And so just to make my final 19 point here, like, I mean, Nate Stanley was a pretty good quarterback. I feel like people have appreciated him more and more over time. And I feel like senior Nate Stanley, you know, I'd take 19 against most teams in the Ferentz era, honestly. I mean, it's a good team.
Yeah, I know. And there was a couple of games there where it's just like, you know, I think the Illinois game was just one where they won, but it was just like, you know, I don't blame him at all. I mean, 68 career touchdown passes. It was 13th in Big Ten history when he retired or stepped away. You know, so I tired. You know,
what's he doing now?
I don't know.
Yeah,
you know, I think maybe he's doing physical therapy or something like that. But,
I hear your cat purring. That means the end of the show here, probably.
Yeah. Saying, hey, you got to fly at 7 a.m. You
we got to let you go. Well, have fun in New York, my man.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for joining us every week on Legends and Listeners. We do it every single week of the year. Chad Leistikow, Scott Dochterman. Talk to you next time on Legends and Listeners from the Channel Seed Studios.